I'm going to run through what a preseason looks like to build a modern attacking structure, given a lot of the constraints that we have in grassroots clubs, whether that's the time you have training, the experience level of your players. One of the big challenges, I think, when we think about modern attack is we end up like one-dimensional sometimes because we don't necessarily have the decision makers trained. One, if someone goes down injured, we don't have that next person to step up. So we want to simplify the decision-making process and create really clear pictures so we have as many guys as possible who can slot into those key roles. Guys and girls, excuse me. We're going to be looking at what a preseason looks like and then how we might augment that training plan once we get into a season environment. I'm Rasmus. I'm the head coach at the University of Illinois with the men's program there. I'm also the director of rugby for Silverbacks Elite Rugby. We create supplemental training environments and supplemental resources that athletes U13, U23 need for their club. So if they're trying to pursue rugby as their primary sport or a sport that they want to do something in the future, they have the same training and development resources that a football player would have here in the United States or that a rugby player would have at the same age if they were in Australia, New Zealand, England, Wales, France. Sorry, my PowerPoint went to sleep. Let's try and do that again on me, so bear with me for a quick second here. So we're going to be talking about building a modern attack. Before we get into it, I just want to go around the room and hear what ideas, what concepts, what buzzwords you guys associate with a modern attacking structure. Space? Right.
I'm a cheater.
Degrees offside.
What other concepts do we associate or buzzwords do we associate with modern attack? Layers. Okay. Anything else? Options. Oh, that's a really good one. That's one of my favorite. Options is 100% one. Any other ideas?
Width mentioned.
Yes, space width. I think that's shape. That's a good one. I'm sorry? Kicking, yeah. Anything else? All right, cool. I think there's a lot of good ones there. Disclaimer on this session, this is how I approach attack. There are a million ways to approach it, and I encourage you to go and see everyone's idea on it. No one's necessarily right, wrong, better than others. There's things that are going to work for certain teams and things that are going to work for certain player groups. For me, options is a really big one with modern attack. The other one is accentuating your player strengths. Team profile is really, really important to modern attack for me. So a lot of what we discussed, like on space, kicking, it plays so much into what your team identity is. So before I kind of get into the process that we're going to go through, the lens that I see the game through is mini games and big games. The mini game is given a finite number of players in attack, defense, and a finite amount of space. Can we achieve those two objectives? A little win is go forward and quick ball. A big win is a line break here. So in this, we can set the terms of the mini games using our shapes, right? That by creating option by our spacing to create a favorable outcome for ourselves or a favorable setup for ourselves. The big games, tripping over the touchline, is can we create those mini games with advantageous conditions, right? We see out here on the edge, we've got a mini game where we've got 3 attackers in this space. We've got our 13, our 14, and our 7, who should all be good athletes, lined up on a prop. So this is an advantageous mini game. We win the big game by getting the ball to that mini game. Does that make sense? Any questions? So step 1A for me is to understand my team profile, right? I want to understand what my strengths, my weaknesses of my team are, and start to build shapes, structures, and patterns that accentuate those strengths, that cover up weaknesses to a certain extent. These are kind of my key questions that I like to ask. I basically start with the SWOT analysis of my team, understanding the strengths, weaknesses. Opportunities are things that we could turn into strengths by the end of preseason, by week 3 of the season. If we're already in the season moving forward, we see there's a way that we can expand or make our attack more dynamic. We have strengths and weaknesses of key individuals. A really important question is, in general, how many people do we need to win a ruck? Right? Hopefully no one's team needs 5 players to win a ruck, but if you need 5 players to win a ruck, a 1-3-3-1 is not going to give you the resources to do that. So that's an important thing to understand. How does your team create and exploit space? What are some ways that we can create and exploit space? Spacing was one that was mentioned earlier on, so just standing spread out in our setup. What are some other ways we can create and exploit space?
Footwork.
Yeah, footwork. Yeah, change of direction. Right, we can commit hips. What are some other ways that we can create and exploit space? Yeah. Okay, so in terms of where we align those mini games, we might stack a couple narrows so we can create space on the edge. Any other ideas about how we can create and exploit space? Yeah?
Overs and unders lines?
Overs and unders lines, yeah, change of direction. Really, really good. One other one I'll add to that list that we've got going here is shifting the point of attack, right? So if we've got, the classic example is just the tip line, right? If we've got these defenders keying in on this first receiver here, if we can just shift the point of attack, tripping over my defenders here, that's a really good way that we can create and exploit space as well. Is our team better off attacking off 9, off 10, having options to do both? What team makeup or what skills do you need to attack off 10 versus off 9?
Backline skills.
Backline skills? Yeah, I would say the pass of your 9 needs to be absolutely excellent as you get higher levels of the game to have any hope of attacking off 10. We'll show you guys a clip later, time-stamped screenshots from a clip of Lindenwood's defense. We all know Lindenwood has a really strong program. It's about 1.5 seconds for them to cover 5 meters of space. So if your first receiver is standing 8 meters back from the line, you have maybe 2 seconds from the play of the ball till your first receiver is being hit. So we have to have really good pass from our 9. We have to have good decision making from our 10. Our 10 needs to understand depth of whether to take the ball at the line, of whether to keep his depth and keep his space and then let runners run off of him. So there's a whole bunch of extra skills, I would say, that are going to come into attacking off 10. I think it's great to try to build to that, but also early in the season when you have a narrow palette of options, in a grassroots club, it might be best to start attacking off 9 and then try to build the capacity to attack off 10, make that an opportunity for you for later in the season, going off that school up. Does anyone have any other questions that they've come across as useful in their careers to understanding a profile of the team other than the ones I've got up there? No, it's okay. Always like to create opportunity to share ideas if there's any out there. So, like I said, we're going to go through the process of building an attacking structure, what the preseason looks like and what the season looks like. So I'm going to ask for a volunteer here who's going to go through this profile of their team, and we're going to start to talk about how we're going to set up that team. So does anyone have a team that they want to volunteer that we might do run through these questions on? All right, okay, so talk to me, Casey, first. What are the strengths and weaknesses of your team?
Think about the 15-6 balls. Strengths, a lot of big, powerful guys, big bodies and back control. Weaknesses, I think consistently attack. You'd be looking at Ham.
Okay.
Long drop balls, looking for passes, often kind of strikes out.
Okay. Do you have any key individual strengths or key individual weaknesses we should know about?
Let's see. Key strengths. Depending on the person, what happens. I think we had a few backs who were second ball runners, but he's on that. So strong good centers in terms of those body strength and speed. Weaknesses, issues with non-play in getting distribution, and in the kicking attack, I think accuracy there.
Okay. So we're probably going to be a team that plays a lot of ball in hand. It's going to run more than we're going to kick. If that's it, we want to create opportunities for those ball running centers to impose themselves on the game as well. So that might be something as simple as if we're going to have a pod and another pod in a 1-3-3-1, we might want to put a link player in here who can attack the line as well, so we can create opportunities for him to get more involvements and more touches in the game. In general, how many players do you think you need to win a ruck? 2? Okay, perfect. That's a good thing. How does your team create and exploit space then, based on its profile? We've got size, so we can probably, with a limited amount of space on the outside, we can probably get over game line with strength. Are there any other ways that we can create and exploit space?
One key for us is figuring out just taking those times, so thinking that's actually the field to help with the fact that they're passers. So it's passing a lot easier because neither the defenders are into the running.
Okay, so being comfortable to narrow the attack to suck in that defense and create opportunities on later phases. Any other ideas if we've got a big, strong forward pack, don't have a lot of hand skills about ways that we might create and exploit space for the group?
You try to get your forwards running at the opponent's team's backs. That's going to take more of their bodies, I guess.
So if we can create
More concerned about the big guy running at them than smaller guys.
Alright. So is that going to create suck more backs into defending the space with the forwards?
Yeah, I mean, if you can get like a bigger guy attacking more of the outside defender, it should create a good attacking, like the outside channel.
Okay. So if we've got one of those centers that's got a good decision making or is a good decision maker, we might move him into a first receiver role where he can shift the point of attack to get that pod wider. That's really good. So playing, it doesn't necessarily have to be off 10, but if that 12 is the guy who's really got the skill to, one, be a threat to fix defenders, and 2, to have the decision making and the vision to hit a guy in space, that can be a really, really effective way that we can use that. Any other ideas? Big, strong forward pack, got great hands. Does that sound like a lot of teams? Okay. Yep.
To follow up to that, once you run a punch with that, with a link 10 to the punch, then maybe the next time, 2-3 phases later, it's going to go out the back door, because now they've become a decoy.
Yeah, exactly.
So decoy.
So we can, if we do this once or twice over the course of the game, we're going to compress
There you go.
all these guys into this space, right?
That never happens in Wisconsin, really.
All right, and then, so in general, we asked the question last, are we better off attacking off 9 or off 10? It sounds like a good option for this team is to try to attack off 10 or off a first receiver. Again, the personnel can be the 12, it's not the jersey they're wearing. Does that sound like a good plan for us?
As long as the 9 can get the second pass side.
Okay, yeah, we're working on the 9 still. That's an opportunity for us before we end the season. So we've got a good plan down, or a good understanding of what our team is, some of the shapes that we're going to start to think about using, some of the structures. Before we go to start doing our structured attack, we're going to take a break for step 1B, and that's to train continuity in attack. Because how many times has this happened? We've done this wonderful job, we had all these blocker lines, and then our number 14 burns the 3 on the edge, and we haven't trained continuity, so these guys just think their job is done after they've created the line break. So we always have to be drilling that continuity mindset, or else all this work to create a line break is all for naught, right? We're just going to give up a turnover by this isolated player who we've created the line break for, and now we're under pressure by defending. So just quickly to go through this, since it's not main topic of presentation, but I want to give a little on it. There's 2 concepts when we're transitioning between structured play, which is this setup, and then broken play, which is what we get when we have that line break. Supporting the space and supporting the ball. Right now, all of our players are supporting the space from here out, meaning they're in their own lateral space, right? Supporting the ball is when we get directly behind the ball carrier, react to where he runs. If we see he's not going to have an offload opportunity or a passing opportunity, we might just, supporting the ball can look like rucking. But if he is creating space for us, has his hands free, then the supporting the ball option, excuse me, can look like running into the space that he's creating. Just some pictures to show when we support the space, what that looks like. So first of all, early on in the phase, pretty much everyone's going to be supporting the space. You see the brumbies here. Everyone has found their own lateral space. Eventually the ball is going to get out here to the back. The brumbies are going to score on the edge. They're spreading out the defense. They're creating space for them to have on the edge here. It turns into a one-on-one situation, and the fullback has the pace to beat the guy to the corner. Here's a picture. We've got guys on the outside supporting the space, so we only need 1 to 3 players probably supporting the ball in any given situation. The rest of our players we want spreading out and still supporting to the space. Why don't we want everyone flooding to the ball?
In case you lose it.
In case you lose it, so you still want to be spread out and have the ability to defend. Why else don't we want to do that? What does that take away from our attack? Options, right? We don't have options left or right. We can only attack in one area of the field. So as the ball gets close to contact, we see a picture that our 1 to 3 nearest guys are going to support the ball. Everyone else stays supporting the space. Just what supporting the ball can look like. We see these 2 guys coming from the inside, looking to ruck. This guy hasn't read that there's a double tackle, so he's running into the space on the outside, just in case that guy gets his arms free, to be there for an offload, so we can create continuity through a line break from the offload there. But then again, these other white players, excuse me, are fanning out and supporting the space, giving the attack options once they recycle the ball. Here's a look from sevens. Another option time we want to support the ball is when someone runs into our space, when someone's drifting across the field. You just want to get behind them. You can see Carlin Isles coming in behind number 2 here. He's got hips turned, so space back on the inside. He's going to cut across, support the ball, and take the swift pass there. And then the last one, always want to support the ball when there's a line break. So you see 9 doing a really good job. Number 2 has made a little half gap. 9 gets right behind his teammate and can react to that. Just one quick suggestion of a way that we can train this, and it's a really, really simple game. We basically have 5 attackers and 5 defenders in this first channel, and we just pass 1 pass out. The attacker takes it up. Once he gets touched, he passes 1 pass out. It's kind of very repetitive and boring. On a double whistle, all of the first line of defenders have to hit the deck, and everyone floods through. The 2 guys closest to the ball carrier, we want them coming in right behind to support the ball, right? And then the other 2 attackers who are further away from the ball, we still want them supporting the space. You have 2 defenders drop back. You can make it 3, you can make it 1, depending on how you want to change the pressure on your players. But they're forced to play after the line break. Does that activity make sense? Any questions on that setup and what we're looking to accomplish with the decision making about supporting the space versus supporting the ball? Yep.
So the front line is get down and they decide to draw by point?
No, they can rejoin once they're on their feet. You can, if your team is not succeeding, you can make them stay down, but it's obviously a bit more game realistic if you let them come back and chase the play as well, and an added way to add pressure. Any other questions on this? So we really want to have good continuity and attack mindset. And once we're going to have walkthrough and speed training that I'm talking about now with our mini games and our big games, we always want to keep that continuity and attack mindset. So anytime we make a line break, we put in place a rule along the lines of there have to be 3 passes after the line break. So our athletes are always thinking, I have to find work even after the structured play finishes. So the next thing that we're going to do is create a mini game plan. We've kind of already started to do that. Do you want to just play a 1-3-3-1 because that's what we've got set up here, where we're playing attacking off 10 some in a diamond shape. Really, really simple there. There are heaps of ways that you can distribute players across the field. Obviously, the numbers usually refer to forwards. They don't have to. If you have very low-skilled, highly athletic players, like your centers are basically flankers, you can make them part of it and make a 3-4-3. At Illinois, I've run a 2-2-2-2. It's really up to you. You don't have to be pigeonholed to the number on the jersey, if that makes sense. If you have a 6 that's a wonderful ball player, he doesn't have to be part of your 1-3-3-1, and you can substitute it back in for him. So front structure is what we're doing across the field. We've obviously chose a 1-3-3-1. We're just going to play with the forwards here. Our shape is going to be a diamond off of 10. So the next step is that we need to train to win the mini games. So I'm going to need some people on feet here. I'm going to need some volunteers. If I could get 4 people on this side and pick up all the defensive cones really quickly, and if I could get 4 people on this side to help me pick up all the attacking cones really quickly.
You want to leave the sidelines on?
Yep, we can leave the sidelines, it's fine. Yeah. Alright, so, or actually we're going to need 5 people because we're attacking off 10. So can I get 5 people in attack here? Alright, so if I can get the 4 of you out there to form my diamond shape, do you want to be my 10 today? Sweet. With you guys, can I get 2 more defenders here? Alright, so the first minute defense I want to set up is we're just mirroring them pretty much exactly with one person marking me. So go ahead and do that, pass the cones down and put a cone down just where you're standing. So one player marking the 9, and then just a defender in front of everyone, just on the ground. Really good. So can you back your cone up? Let's make a flat line here. So in theory, when we've got this set up, we're probably, we're saying obviously a wider field, that there's enough space on her outside shoulder that you're going to be able to get there and beat her to that space and just create a quick ball and go forward. So first thing we're just going to do is a walkthrough of all of our options and set up a stationary defense so the sort of attacking players can start to understand what the option looks like. So all we're going to do here, we're going to pass the ball, our 10's going to take it to the line, we're each running into space. So coming forward, taking it to the line, running at a gap, and when we see he's running into a gap, we put him into the hole. Really good, that's our first option. Right. Next, I'm gonna have you guys all come in really, really nice and narrow, starting from Casey. Leave your cones, those cones where they are. Come nice and tight, right next to Casey, shoulder to shoulder, come down, and put a cone at your feet. So now, what's an option that we can use in this shape to attack the space? So we can go back door. So if we're going to go back door, we want to make sure that we're accentuating the detail that we need to have you wear. Nice and flat, really, really good. So we'll walk through that option. We'll call this roll. Passes the ball.
Crash.
Yeah, and we can pull it out the back.
Back door. Back door.
All good?
I'm an equal.
It's all good, it's all good. But that's okay, we can also play a tip option there because we can probably get a little win in the mini game. If we just get that little half gap there, we can still get you over the game line on the outside. So let's see a tip half option. We go 10 to the first receiver, and he draws tips to the outside. Good, that's a good one. What's a third option that we can do instead of going to the first guy and then going out the back? Straight out the back. Straight out the back. So 10 takes it forward. We've got our 3 guys there, and we come out the back guard, and then we're tacking into the wide space. So now we've got a couple of options there. Obviously, we'll give names to it that the players like. And then the last one I want you guys to set up. I want you to take a cone and set it up upside down, and I want you guys to spread evenly all the way past all the way to the chairs there. So we've got them spread out a little bit too much. Upside down cone. And here we want to really take it to the line because we have the gaps and we just want everyone to run at a different gap. 10 making a decision to put someone through the hole, so 10 taking the space. Whoever runs into a hole gets the ball. Good. So now the way that we're going to train this after we've walked through and built our palette of options is we'll just say we've got up, black cones are the ones with the black ring on them, and down are the upside down cones. So if I say up, everyone aligns to their up cone. Yep, there we go. And then we play, what option do we want to hit with this spacing? Right? Yeah, we could hit the back door. This was supposed to be one. I know the space was a little bit limited, but we could potentially carry here in the middle because there should be space to get to our outside shoulder, but I'm okay with back door here, so let's see it. Let's execute it. So with the back door, we're trying to go around the outside. All good, all good. So if I set upside down, we get really wide and spread. So what's the option that we're looking to do now that they're really wide and spread? Yep. Flat ball, 10 taking it to the line. Good. All right, let's say we go black cones. There we go, nice and narrow. What's our option? Back door.
Back door.
There we go, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you guys, you can all sit down. So we want to do this first at walking pace for comprehension. And the reason that we want to do comprehension walk-through pace segment with this is there's a lot of really important details, right? If we're going out the back door, having that guy, that tip option right on your hip, creating the lane for that pass is really, really important. The value for this section was discipline. And the reason I chose discipline is there's got to be a really disciplined approach to the attention to detail for everything in attack. So that's why we start with the walkthrough. Now with that exact same game, anything that we do to train structure, we want to first do it at walkthrough pace, then we want to do it over speed, and then we want to do it with physicality. So with that one, we can do that with speed. We can do it with physicality by making it full contact and forcing the team to win the breakdown afterwards. I like running these as a whole session, right? Because it lends itself, we've got gameplay here. There are a bunch of micro skills. I put some ideas on the board of what might work that you can insert that's going to enhance the play. So if we're doing a physicality day, that would be a great day for our part segment to be on breakdown, right? The other thing you can do is we can be working on this attacking shape and winning the mini games on a defensive day too, especially if we're doing physicality. We still want to create the opportunity for them to attack and replicate what we want them to do in a game when they're just playing opposition to our defense, if that makes sense. All right? The next step is to train to win the big games, right? The mini games, we're just replicating our shapes across the field. It's slightly different when we get into those wide channels in a 1-3-3-1. The concept that I like to teach for winning these big games, referred to as reading the foreign defender. I'm pretty heavily influenced by league, and this is an idea that comes from the NRL. So if you're looking for more additional resources on it, definitely go and look up analysis on that. And the reason I like this approach is it creates it so anyone who's brand new to rugby can become a decision maker in our team. Sorry, turn the video up. Apologies for the technology. Alright, so the first one I'm going to just play through, and then we'll look at the foreign defenders and where they are and what that means. So here's the first clip, a try for the Wallabies coming in on the inside. This is a really interesting clip because Wallabies think about attacking both ways, and we can see the foreign defender both times. So when I refer to 50 position, I'm referring to a lateral position on the field between the posts. If the foreign defender is closer to the touch line than the post, I'll say that he's inside 50. If he's outside the touch the post towards the far touch line, he's going to be outside 50. So first we have this foreign defender right here. He is outside the post relative to his touch line. So we're going to say that this foreign defender is outside 50, which means that we want to attack narrow. Basically what we're saying is that there's 4 defenders outside of the post. They should be able to cover that space if they're a good defensive side. So the Wallabies initially set up trying to attack to the left, and they read that that's overloaded. We could have had these playmakers who end up cutting back across the field try to play wide. We're going to say that they don't think they can do it because there are 4 defenders there who can reasonably cover that space. So they then decide to switch the attack and come back this way. We have the foreign defender. He's beyond the posts towards the far touch line, so he's outside of 50. So that means that the space is there to be attacked on the inside. Once we've made the decision that we want to play a mini game on the inside, a narrow mini game, instead of a wide mini game, It's just reading what's in front of us. We see turned hips in the narrow channel, and that's how we're going to exploit them and win the game. So here we have another one. The French are attacking the All Blacks. We've got Nanu is the foreign defender. He's inside the post, so we're calling him inside 50. So that means that we don't want to play this most narrow mini game. So notice narrow mini game is this two-man shape off of 10. We just want to get it wider than that. Obviously, there's a mini game here in the middle of the field with these two attackers. There's probably more guys outside of that picture as well. All we're saying is we just don't want to play this most narrow one. And once we get the ball wider, we just want to read what's in front of us. So we get it wide to Thierry, who has the space to just crash over. Here's a really interesting one for a team that's all the way back on their own goal line. It's definitely a brave thing to try and attack wide here, but we do see the foreign defender is inside 50, so we're reasonably sure that there's going to be space on the outside. And just to show that there are different options about how we can attack that space on the edge, there's the kick option there. The other reason I like this clip is it was just a line break, which was a good outcome from the initial kick and the exploitation of the wide space. But how important is it to have really good support for the ball after the line break? That's what creates the try, is the excellent continuity and attack, not the initial setup. Here we have our foreign defender. He's again inside 50. So again, the option is to attack wide. And the cause eventually finds a space on the corner to go ahead and finish that off. So that's the concept from league. My question is, why do we think this concept exists? Why is the foreign defender a good indicator of whether there's space wide or not? Any ideas? So in that 1-3-3-1 shape, how many attackers do you think we're typically going to have outside of that last pot of 3? You've got your wing probably. You've got your forward who's out there. You probably have 2 backs tied up with those 2 pods being decision makers. You might have another wing over there. So that maybe leaves us a center or a fullback, a center and a fullback. So you're typically going to have 4 attackers. So we're looking for a 4v4 as our worst case number situation, right? Is a 4v4. Maybe we have a blindside wing coming around to create more numbers. And the thinking is, with 35 meters of space, with even numbers, we should be able to create something, even if it's just a line break. And a big piece of this concept, does anyone mind if I borrow them on their feet real quick? Anyone? Quick volunteer? Okay, perfect, thank you. So if I can get you right in front of me here. So the concept is, if I can turn your hips this way, right, now I've created favorable conditions, even if I'm not the faster man, to win a race to this space right here. With 35 meters of space and another option outside of me, the guy with that much space to cover, it's not reasonable for another man to come crash down and support if you just get an arm tackle on me. So that's where the concept comes in for foreign in beyond the 50. Thank you very much. You might augment this, right? Your team might have terrible hands and we can only exploit 3 defenders in that space. So our decision becomes the 3 in defender needs to be at or inside 50 for us to play wide. But by making this hard, fast rule, every single one of your players can be competent decision makers about where we want to be playing those mini games and how we play the big game. Any questions on that? So now we've got to train to win the big games. Obviously, we're going to do the 3 components of it: walk through, attack with speed, attack with, with walk through over speed, and then pressure with physicality. I'm just going to quickly show a setup of how we might create a game to do that. So if I can just get a diamond shape right here and a diamond shape off of it, so 8 attackers there on feet, if you don't mind. And if I can get like 6 defenders over here. Can I get 2 more attackers in this diamond right here? We're just going to attack off 9 for a second for this one because it requires fewer people. All right, so our foreign defender, could I get you on feet, Alec?
Yes, of course.
So we've got you as our foreign defender. We're going to put a bib on. You can just hold it because it's sweaty. So I'm going to have you guys start all compressed, so stand shoulder to shoulder, all compressed in the middle of the field, shoulder to shoulder. And this is a relative field. Guy at the back there, remind me your name?
Zep.
Zep. So you're going to be the decision maker. If the foreign defender is inside 50, you're calling on, and that means that we need to move the ball out the back and somehow out to that pod. If the foreign defender is outside 50, you're not going to say anything, and they're just going to attack what's in front of them. Okay?
Great.
So for you guys, I'll either say left, in which case we're going to all go accordion to the left line. We have to be shoulder to shoulder still, and then we can start to spread out, back out across the field. I'll say right, and you come to the right line, accordion in, accordion back out, or I'll say spread, and you guys can just spread out and get even spacing. Okay? So we're going to be nice and even, nice and tight. We'll just do this kind of at a walking pace right now. So I'm going to say right. We're starting to accordion in. The play of the ball. Where? On. Good. So we need to get it out the back. Yep. Good. Good read. So we've manipulated where that foreign defender is. Good. Again, just another simple one. If we say left, then obviously the foreign defender is going to end up wider than the goalpost there, and so we don't have any call coming from the outside, and you guys just play what's in front of you. All right? Any questions about that? Go ahead and have a seat. Thank you guys all very much. Thank you.
It's awesome.
So again, this is a game that we can play with speed. This is a game that we can play with physicality. We can implement skill-based parts into that and do a whole session with that as well. Again, we can use this on a defensive day if we're doing physicality as well. Step 5 is just going to be match simulation. That might be scrimmages in your preseason. It might be some sort of augmented scrimmage where it's hit and wrap, but then let the player go to ground. You might do a live breakdown contest over them to make sure that you have support. For how to set up your training schedule for preseason, if you're doing an hour session, this is probably how your sessions are going to be mapped out. We never want to do our overspeed and physicality on the same day because we're going to diminish the pressure that we can apply through speed or physicality if we try to do them both on the same day. So we always want to separate those. If we're doing like 90-minute to 2-hour sessions, we can probably accomplish this in 4 sessions. If you're training twice a week, this is hopefully something that you should be able to implement in about 4 weeks' time, right? And still have an extra day if you're doing 2 sessions a week to work on your set piece, to work on your defense, to work on attacking off your set piece, kicking strategy, etc. Again, we're trying to marry the walkthrough and the speed days, and then we're trying to marry get the physicality on the same days as well. So what Grassroots in-season week might look like, depending on the resources and the time you have. Obviously, Sunday and Saturday is our match day. We want our athletes doing some active recovery. Coaches, I really recommend, if you can, looking at film, obviously, to review your own games, to preview your opponents. But when we do this, we want to delegate, right? So we want to go and say, hi, I want you to be my attack captain, so I want you to tell me what's going on with our opposition defense next week, and I want you to delegate an assistant captain to look at our own team's attack from the last week. So we want to delegate those roles across our entire program, so we're not overwhelming ourselves as coaches. If everyone can spend like an hour on this, we can put together something really, really great. When we get to Monday, we probably want to have some sort of team meeting or just distribute some pictures that start to show the things that we want to see in training that week. It might be reviewing our own performance and some things that we want to fix. If there's some details not right in our attacking shape, if the spacing is off or too narrow, and therefore we're eating up our own space, that might be something that we're sending out. And I'm going to show you some pictures of some things we might look at in our opposition that might affect our training here in a second. Tuesday, I like to do my walkthrough and speed stuff on Tuesday. Thursday, I like to be my physical day and do a little bit of match simulation. If you have a captain throw on Friday, that's excellent to nail any detail that you haven't quite gotten right in the week. But obviously, timing is a constraint that you might not be able to do that in Grassroots club. So what are we looking at for on film? So I'm going to show you a few pictures from some games, and we're going to talk about how we can augment how we run these mini games to get our team to train for it. So first thing, I want you guys to be looking at the Michigan defense. This was in 2019 a very common picture that we saw. 2 is our first receiver off of 9 there, just for context. Is there anything that we want to, if we were to generalize this across an entire game, any picture of space that we see here that we can exploit? Was it?
The corner.
Okay, the corner, they're very narrow. Yep, so we could do it with our big games. Anything else that we can see with space in the mini game, right off, playing off 9, that first mini game where the ball is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so why did you say a tip line?
So the guy just outside the 2, 11 minute game or whatever, his hips are turned right in. So
Yeah, and Michigan over pursued the first receiver. They sent 2 guys up on the first receiver, creating space right there. So can I get you to stand in front of me here? Could I get another defender to be slightly staggered behind him on the outside? And then do you want to hop on my outside shoulder here? So this might not look like space here because he's defending him for our tip line based on what we practiced all through our preseason, right? But now we see a picture where we can augment it. What's the space that you want to attack to? So can I get you to step up and pronounce it a little bit more? You see space behind him. Right, so we just want to alter that tip line ever so slightly. Now we're taking it up. You're not running straight at him, you're coming back in on an unders line. And that's something that we can train in our mini game. Cool, thank you very much, guys. So the way that we might augment our mini game is we might let that defense set up even numbers, but everyone who's not those 2 guys pursuing the first receiver has to do an up-down. So that slows their progression. That's one way we can augment it. Another great way to augment our mini games is to change the offsides line. So we can say that those guys who are defending the first receiver can take a step offsides. All right. Here's a picture of the United States and Canada. Again, kind of similar picture. Where do we see the space in the mini game context? Where is it? Yeah, so we've got on this. So we've got this. The girl defending the second pass there has stepped out of the line, so she's isolated herself. Just on speed of pass here, the ball's gotten from 9 to 10. Does she still have space? The 10, the first receiver. Yeah, she's got time and space, which is really, really key. It means that we've got a great 9 who's delivering the ball nice and early to our 10 and putting our 10 in a great position to attack. So we've got this we've got this player isolated here. So we could obviously try to exploit the space behind her with like the change of direction with running lines. Another great thing that we can do is if this 10 takes the ball to the line and these 2 attackers off of her run to either side, that defender's isolated. Whichever way she picks, there's going to be space for the option to be able to flat pass. Does everyone see that? So, and again, we can augment the rules of our minigame. We know they over pursue the second pass, so everyone except the defender on the second pass has to do an up-down. Whoever's defending the second pass, we give them a bit, and they can run off sides. Those are, again, really good ways that we can augment it. Next, I want to look at a big game. So this is us playing Lindenwood and us being Illinois. First thing I want to say is that's horrible spacing in attack where we have 6 players on the ground, I think, there. From the play of the ball, our first receiver catches the ball. It's been about 1.6 seconds. Lindenwood's advanced about 7 meters at this point. We're starting to feel under pressure. You can tell that the 15 is feeling under pressure because he's stepping sideways. At 2.78 seconds, 2.8 seconds, we've got the ball to our second receiver, but he's getting hit, right? We can also see with this picture, where is the outside defender relative to the inside defenders? He's up. Lindenwood played banana blitz kind of in that game, so they're pressuring harder on the outside, especially as the ball goes wide. So when we're thinking about our big game, we want to think about ways that we can apply pressure to our athletes to think about the depth decision, right? So a way we might do that on our walkthrough day is, instead of having us all stand in a flat line back here, we might start to create that banana when they're doing their walkthrough, so they can start to feel that pressure from that banana, that banana-shaped blitz, and start having them think, I need to be deeper, because eventually there's an edge of that blitz defense, right? Eventually there's an edge. There's also opportunities to attack with overlines behind the outside defenders. Once we get into more of a speed or a game-like situation, over-speed situation, once we get into a physical situation, again, change the offsides line for your four-in defender and out, so he and his group on the edge can cheat forward, or you can again make the guys on the inside do some sort of up-down, some sort of activity that slows their progress. You can give them a further back offsides line if you want to start with less pressure, if that makes sense. Any questions on all of that? No, I'm throwing a whole lot of information out. So that eventually gets us to setting our KPIs for the week. We've looked at film on our opponents. We've talked about how we might augment those games, the mini games and the big games in our training week to show pictures that we're going to see in the game and make tweaks to our structure. The last thing that's really important is setting KPIs. These things don't have to have any truth to them whatsoever. It's just you're trying to incentivize behavior. I'm going to go to the fourth one on the list, the log versus big performances. That came from Eddie Jones when he was with the Waratahs. He went to his team and he said, after a breakdown, if the ball carrier was laying on the ground for 2 or more seconds, they won only 20% of their games. If the average time that their player was laying on the ground was 2 or less seconds, they won 80% of their games. It's completely a lie, but he got his players back on their feet, back onto the game, back on sides to become options. So it's all about creativity and incentivizing the behaviors that you want. It could be phases per game. If you're going to be just a really physical side, you might just want to batter them with phase after phase after phase. If you're frustrated that your team's not getting the ball wide, we can make it passes per phase, because if we're not getting more than a pass from 9, but if we're like under 2 passes per phase, that means probably more often than not we're just playing in our first mini game and we're not looking at that foreign defender. We're not reading when the space is on out wide. We can look at possession outcomes. You can get extremely creative. Just think really, really simply, what's the behavior that I want to see, and what are some indicators of that? And think about things that are really easy to track. Obviously, log for laying on ground versus back in game performances, timing how long players on the ground. That takes an analyst team to track. But passes per phase, you can count passes, you can count phases. We all have phones that can do division if we can't do it ourselves. Make it as simple on yourself as possible as well. Last thing, just to kind of finish us off here, I just wanted to share some additional trends. Let's see how we're doing on time. Oh, good. So a lot of innovations in rugby union come from rugby league. I am a rugby union purist. It's the better game, but rugby league is fun to watch. And I try to watch a couple of matches throughout the year. I really encourage everyone to consume a little bit of rugby league content. As coaches or players, we should all be consuming a bit of rugby union content. Just find one podcast of rugby league analysis, or watch a couple of highlight clips just to get into it. Because everything that we see about layered attack, about shapes, about running lines and change of direction, a lot of that came from rugby league, and that's a good leading indicator of where attacking structures, shapes, and patterns are going to go. One I recommend is the game plan on the NRL.com YouTube channel that just came out this year. It's got a lot of good content. And then just one other fun thing from rugby league, your tip and roll option where you have the tip pass on the hip, the roll option at the back, 82% of NRL games in 2021. Attacking that tip line on the 2-in defender with the out the back option, there was a try scored in 92% of rugby league games in 2021. So look for that in Six Nations and in the Rugby Championship this year. Squid Rugby is an awesome resource. If not for you, if you're a coach and you don't get it for your players, it's really, really good for training your eyes. It's not necessarily to say I want us to replicate what New Zealand is doing, but the same pictures of space that New Zealand might be exploiting, you might see in your own film, and your players might see in their film analysis as well. So he does a really good job on presentation. It's pretty funny. I recommend using him as a resource. For this, I know I ran through a ton of content. We tried to go through about 4 weeks worth of training in an hour session. I'm going to be releasing videos or slides, some other game ideas. We don't just use those like 3 games that I set up there in my environment, so happy to share a couple more. If you're interested in that, just take an email and I'll send it all out to you afterwards. And then the last thing for coaches, our organization, Silverbacks, is going to be offering on an ongoing basis and less dense than this, free virtual coaching education classes. It's going to be very heavily participation based. We want coaches to share their experience, so we might just pour into attacking shapes for an hour. Why we use a certain attacking shape and what strengths that accentuates, what were the challenges of that, just to broaden our knowledge of what's out there so we can find things that work for our teams. And hopefully that'll be a good supplement to this somewhat dense presentation today. Are there any questions on any of this here? All right, well, thank you guys, everyone, for your time. Feel free to come and put your email and I'll send you out additional resources. If I can get a hand, our other theme is teamwork, to get all the tables back in place with chairs with them really quickly. I greatly appreciate it. If not, I'm happy to keep working on it myself too. But thank you guys so much, and I really hope this was helpful for you.